our topic is Deng Xiaoping and transformation of China. Our content will be divided into the following 4 parts. First, let's look at the context in which the reform and open policy took shape. From the perspective of international situation, on the one hand, due to the gradual deterioration of Sino-Soviet relations, China began to break away from Soviet and conduct its own exploration of socialism. On the other hand, in order to follow the trend of world development and improve its comprehensive national strength and international competitiveness, Deng Xiaoping pointed out that the really big problems in the world now, with global strategic problems, one is a problem of peace and the other is a problem of development. Under the influence of globalization, the idea of reform and open policy was proposed. In terms of the domestic environment, with the expansion of Great Leap Forward, the People's Commune Movement, and the Cultural Revolution, Chinese society faced major losses, whether politically, economically, or culturally. In face of this grave situation, the establishment of second generation of party's leadership with Deng Xiaoping at the core provided a solid foundation for future development. And in 1978, with the shift of the party and state's focus, China's modernization was also on the agenda. Deng Xiaoping made a correct analysis and summary of the pace and direction of China's future development and put forward the idea of reform and open policy. From a time perspective, the whole process of reform and open policy can be divided into 4 stages. The first stage, from the late Cultural Revolution to the eve of the 3rd plenary session of 11th Central Committee. During this period, Deng Xiaoping advocated the ideological line of emancipate your mind and be practical, and the call for reform and open policy was sounded. With the end of the Cultural Revolution, the future of China gradually looked promising. However, at the critical period of historical turning, there were thoughts that bound people's progress. We firmly supported all the decisions made by Chairman Mao and followed all the instructions of Chairman Mao finally. However, once it was raised, Deng Xiaoping had already made clear his opposition, arguing that China had to break away from this shackle if it wanted to achieve development and progress. 1978 saw the publication of the article, Practice is the sole criterion of truth, which clearly pointed out its incorrectness. As a result, a big discussion on the issue of truth standard was started. In December 1978, Deng Xiaoping made a major speech entitled Emancipating the Mind, Be Practical, and Uniting to Look Ahead, which clearly pointed out that emancipation at an ideological level was very necessary for modernization. The line of emancipate your mind and be practical broke the confinement of old traditional forces, removed some resistance to reform and open policy. The second phase, from the 3rd plenary session of the 11th Central Committee to the eve of the 12th National Party Congress, focused on rural and urban economic reforms. Deng Xiaoping first proposed reform in 1978 and advocated shifting the focus of party and state to economic construction. The focus was to weaken the state's stranglehold on the peasants and give them the right to autonomy, allowing them to arrange production in line with the actual conditions of market. The starting point of rural reform was the implementation of the household contract responsibility system and the development of collective economy. This gave peasants the right to be able to produce on their own, which was important for increasing their motivation and productivity. Deng Xiaoping expressed his full approval of this in rural areas and promoted the full-scale implementation of the household contract responsibility system. The rural reform, as a basic reform, has achieved obvious results. The success of rural reform provided valuable experience for the reform of urban economic system. Deng Xiaoping proposed that reform should be transferred from the countryside to the cities. In case of reforming the urban economic system, the most important elements are at three levels. The first is the reform of the enterprise management system, expanding the autonomy of enterprises. The second is the restructuring of the ownership system. The third is the adjustment of the distribution system. At the same time, Deng Xiaoping recognized that it was essential to open a door to the outside world. Shenzhen, Zhuhai, Xiamen, and Shantou special economic zones were established one after another. The special economic zones introduced many advanced and available experience to China, and propelled the economy of Chinese cities to achieve rapid development. In the third stage between the 12th National Party Congress and the Southern Talks, Deng Xiaoping formally proposed a new proposition of building socialism with Chinese characteristics. The new proposition of building socialism with Chinese characteristics is a continuation of Mao Zedong's proposition. Combine the universal truths of Marxism with the specific reality of China. Follow our own pace and build socialism with Chinese characteristics. This mainly contains two levels of meaning and requirements. One is be able to always adhere to socialism without vary, and the other is to always be able to combine it with Chinese characteristics. The new proposition of building socialism with Chinese characteristics has clearly explained the direction and goal of building, consolidating, and developing socialism, and is conducive to further explore the path of reform and open policy. The fourth stage from the Southern Talks and the 14th National Congress, which established the objectives of economic system reform, to the present. The process of reform and open policy faced many complex and difficult obstacles. In the face of these obstacles, Deng Xiaoping, even at the age of 88, went to Wuchang, Shenzhen, Zhuhai, and Shanghai to conduct investigations. The main topics of the Southern Talks, which lasted for more than 30 days from January 18, 1992, revolved around the two issues of reform and open policy, and economic construction. The talks are divided into about 6 parts. Deng Xiaoping answered many questions that had long troubled people in the practice of reform and open policy, and pointed out the general direction and trend of social development, which is an important symbol of the final maturity and formation of scientific theory of Deng Xiaoping. The reform and open policy thus entered a brand new stage. Today, we focus on the relationship between planning and market, capitalism and socialism discussed by Deng Xiaoping. He pointed out that the main reason why the reform and open policy could not take a step forward was that people were afraid that would take the place of capitalism. Deng Xiaoping believed that capitalism and socialism should be judged mainly by whether they are conducive to the development of productive forces of a socialist society, whether they are conducive to strengthening the comprehensive national power of a socialist country, and whether they are conducive to raising the living standards of the people. Both planning and the market were only economic instruments, and the amount of planning and the market could not be used as a distinction between socialism and capitalism. This formulation by Deng Xiaoping freed people from the obsession of what is the basic system of society, and whether it's a planned economy or a market economy. The 14th Congress of the Communist Party of China, held in 1992, clearly indicated the nature of the socialist economy, which is a socialist market economy. Until today, with the continuous reform and open policy, China's socialist market economy is still flourishing.
Hello, we have just reviewed the background and the process of transformation of China and reform and open policy. Now we move to Deng's legends. Time magazine selected Deng Xiaoping as the 1987 Man of the Year, and the Time said that Deng Xiaoping opened the doors of the central state to the world, a magnificent and unparalleled feat in human history. So, what are the most important legends of Deng? The first one is reform and open policy. We called Deng as the chief architect of Chinese socialist economic reform, opening up, and modernization. Why we need the reform and opening policy? Because in 1978, the GDP of China was 149 billion, 11 times that of the United States. GDP per capita was only 381 yuan. At the bottom of the world, we have 25% of the world's population, but only produce 1% of the world's wealth. At that time, Deng went on a study to Japan. When he got on the fast train in Japan, he said that, I feel fast. China is suitable to take such a fast train. What's more, he visited the factory floor in Japan. He said, I know what modernization is now. When Deng came back China, he said to Xi Zhongxun, the governor of Guangdong province, set aside an area in Guangdong province and set up a special zone as well. The central government has no money, but we can give you some policy and find your way out. So, the reform and open policy began. In 1980, China officially established the first four special economic zones: Shenzhen, Zhuhai, Shantou, and Xiamen. 4 years later, China further opened up 14 coastal open cities, including Dalian, Tianjin, Guangzhou, and so on. 1 year later, the Yangtze River Delta, Pearl River Delta, and southern Fujian Delta were opened up as coastal economic opening zones. And in 1988, Hainan Island was decided as a special economic zone. In 1990, the Shanghai Pudong Development Zone was established. Before that, there was an old saying about Pudong. Adelaide had a bed in Puxi, not a house in Pudong, which means that Pudong was very poor before that. So what about the result? As a representative city of reform and open policy, Shenzhen has developed at a rapid pace. In 1979, Shenzhen was still a fiction village, but today, we call Shenzhen the city that rises overnight. During the 10 years of opening up to the outside world, a new factory building was completed every 6 days on average, and a new product was launched over 11 days, the so-called Shenzhen speed. We use the term pioneering cattle to describe Shenzhen's hardworking and enterprising spirit. Besides, the Pudong New Area is another typical area of China reform and open policy. Deng Xiaoping once explained that Pudong is different. Pudong is facing the Pacific Ocean, Europe, and America, and the whole world. There are many firsts in Pudong. For example, China's first financial and trade zone, China's first free trade zone, and so on. As can be seen from the pattern of China's reform and open policy, we experience from the coast to the interior, from the city to the delta. There are three characteristics of the war process. All around, material, broad field. We also call Deng as the pioneer of the era. In addition to the reform and open policy, another of his legendary stories is the realization of Hong Kong's return to China. We all know that Hong Kong has been colonized for about 100 years, and the Chinese government has tried to recover Hong Kong at different times, but failed. In order to solve this problem, Deng Xiaoping clearly put forward the concept of one country, two systems, which means that under the foundation of one China policy, the socialism is the principal part and the capitalism is supplementary. Under such a system, Hong Kong could maintain its original development system, but the sovereignty and the management of Hong Kong had changed from UK to China. The handover of Hong Kong is inseparable from the efforts of Deng Xiaoping. In September 1982, Margaret Thatcher visited China for talks with Deng Xiaoping on the Hong Kong issue. She posits that the theory of the validity of three treaties, but Deng Xiaoping said that the issue of sovereignty is not negotiable. As we can see that the return of Hong Kong had a long way to go. It took 2 years and 22 rounds of negotiations, and in December 1984, China and Britain formally signed a joint declaration declared that China would experience sovereignty over Hong Kong on 1997 July 1st. In 1992, Deng Xiaoping stood at Shenzhen Huanggang port, looking out across Hong Kong with deep emotion. He once said, "When Hong Kong returns to the motherland, I would like to walk and stand there even if I have to visit this part of motherland in a wheelchair." However, just over 130 days before the date of Hong Kong's return to China, he passed away. On 1997 July 1st, Hong Kong returned to China. After its return to China, Hong Kong's economy flourished. After Deng's death, in March 1997, Time magazine posted its headline, "The next China will Deng's years turn Beijing into a superpower the world can love." So, let us see to what extent had his successors followed his ideology in managing China. As for Deng Xiaoping theory, it explored the basic issue of building socialism in China and consolidating and developing socialism, which is a new stage in the development of Marxism in China. 5 years later, Jiang Zemin wrote the Three Represents, which further answer the question of what socialism is and how to build socialism, and creatively answer the questions of what kind of party to build and how to build it. In terms of Hu Jintao, he wrote the Scientific Outlook of Development, which has scientifically answered such major questions as what kind of development to achieve and how to develop under the new situation. During the Deng Xiaoping era, the people were concerned about whether China should follow a socialist or capitalist path in the future. Jiang Zemin responded to this question. He said that we should hold high the great banner of Deng Xiaoping's theory and strive to create a new situation for the course of socialism with Chinese characteristics. After Jiang, Hu Jintao also deepened socialist reform. He said that, guided by Deng Xiaoping's theory and the important words of Three Represents, we will implement the scientific concept of development. Nowadays, under Xi Jinping's leadership, we have steadfastly followed the path of socialism with Chinese characteristics. From now on, the central task of the CCP is to promote the great rejuvenation of Chinese nation in a comprehensive manner with Chinese-style modernization. Here are the references of our presentation. That's all. Thank you for your listening.